And Chip seems to think that I have dulcet tones. Hardly. Hardly. I have a strange voice. It's a kind of whiny voice. I don't like it. Nobody likes the sound of their own voice anyway. And I think very few people like the way they look. Oh well, this was a downer way to start the stream. Okay, before I get into it. I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Whadjuk Noongar peoples. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. So, good morning everyone. Yeah, I totally forgot about the daylight savings change. And, you know, in this age where everything just runs synchronized off network time, like our phones change automatically, I don't think I have any clocks that I need to change. I haven't set the time on my microwave, of course, so it's just always wrong. But I just kind of trust that everywhere I see the time around me is correct. Although one thing I need to check is the time in my car. Cars should really, like modern cars have GPS because they have built-in navigation. They really, really should set the clock automatically. Why is it that these days, oh look, my camera position is a bit strange. Why is it that these days, that's annoying me. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it while I'm talking. Why is it that these days you have to, I can't quite reach the, maybe that's better? Yeah, that's a bit better. Why do you have to go into a menu in a car and set the time when the car knows exactly where it is and it knows the time down to, I don't know what the resolution of time is on GPS, but it's like nanoseconds or something. It should be able to figure it out. Maybe the issue is just that it doesn't know, it doesn't get updates to the time zone tables which change from year to year, so it wouldn't necessarily know when daylight savings begins or ends in its current location. All of this was from the second comment, the first comment about are we too early? Yes, so I apologise to everybody in Europe that this is made an hour later. Okay, so good morning to Gerald TNT, outside the box, who is Chip. Who else? We've got Stephen W. Oh, well, I like muffins as well. Mr. Fixit. YouTube isn't notifying you. Okay, don't know what's going on with that. Gavin, some call it fun. Imogen, Henrik, Johan, Bernie, Russell, David. David Howe says, good morning from Melbourne. Yes, it is a good morning. It's a really, really nice day today. Tradie. Yes. Okay. Usually I can... Chips. Yeah. Chip said the Bimmer probably won't be right, which is talking. This is talking about the time, and because the head unit is usually aftermarket and not heavily integrated. Yeah, they can be fairly heavily integrated though. When in my RX-8, there was a connection between. I actually showed this in a talk that I did way back in, I think it was 2009, give or take, 2008, at LCA. I did a talk about car hacks, and I showed part of the schematic of an RX-8 and how the anti-lock braking system is connected to the head unit. So if you mess around with the head unit, be careful. All right. Chip says, pretty cold still in Ballarat. Yes. And Chip says, the one in my Vault is fully integrated and still doesn't use GPS time. Henrik says, wow, so much holes in your shirt. What happened? I hadn't noticed. Are there holes? Yeah, this is a... Yeah, that side. That side. Somewhere. Holes. Yes. Yeah. Oh, there. Yes. It's wearing through. This is a very old and very worn shirt. Yes, Mr. Fix-It. So this is where communications methods collide. So I saw Mr. Fix-It you posted on is it the Open PNP group? Maybe an hour ago or something, replying to my email there about those feeders. Yeah, so those feeders look really interesting. And yeah. So, by way of background, many of you will have seen the almost fully 3D printed feeders that I've been using on Mick or Make It for years and years now. They are a type of feeder that was designed by a guy in Germany who released all the designs. He hasn't released, to the best of my knowledge, he hasn't released the source files, like the original project files that he used to design them. And the reason for that basically is that it's like a whole series of hacks and modifications and kludges and things over time. It's not like a clean design file. And so if you change things in it, change one or two little things, the whole thing can fall apart, which is what can happen to CAD type, CAD stuff over time when a design has evolved dramatically. But he's released all of the STLs and other formats so that people can print them themselves. And I've done modifications to them by taking the STLs, loading it into Fusion 360, and then basically treating it like a block, like a lump of clay, and doing sketches on faces and just munging stuff around. But treat the work he's done as if it's like a single object, and then work from there. And one of the weak points, there are several weak points to the design. One of the weak points is the little advanced mechanism, which uses a 3D printed part that comes down to a fine point, and it's printed oversized, and then the idea is that you use a knife and you cut it so that you end up with a nice sharp angle, and that sharp angle hooks into the holes in the side of the tape, and it pushes it along as the servo retracts and extends. And so what happens over time is that the sharp point on that 3D printed bit wears, and it can fail to engage with the tape, particularly with plastic tape, because the plastic tape is very thin. So it's got some weak points like that. And fairly recently someone posted on the OpenPNP mailing list, I think it's a guy in China, who went to a factory that makes Yamaha feeders, and he got part of the feeder mechanism, just the part that engages with the tape and drives it. So it's the ratchet mechanism that allows you to do repeatable advances in a very predictable and consistent way, which is what you need if you're advancing tape on a surface mount feeder. And he basically built the rest of the feeder 3D printed, kind of based on the MGRL 0816 feeders around that. So it eliminated the probably the biggest point of weakness and inaccuracy in the 3D printed feeder by using steel parts instead, which is very clever. And so Mr. Fix-It apparently has just ordered a couple. Cool. So Mr. Fix-It said selling them on eBay and AliExpress and his own website, Micro SMT. Groovy. So I am really curious to see how these turn out. But of course the feeders that I am still waiting for are the ones from, the rapid feeder. Why can't I load this? I don't have any bandwidth problems, do I? I'm trying to load that URL, microsmt.com, and I might bring this up on screen so you can see it as well, if it'll load. Microsmt.com. That's interesting. It just went to a, did I misspell that? Microsmt.com, domain is for sale. Oh, okay. So, I don't know what's going on. MicroSMT. I'll just search for it. Oh, .com.cn. Okay, because it's a Chinese site. Location is set to Australia. Now, Oh yeah, cool. So this will give you an idea of what I am talking about. So a lot of this design is very similar to the MGRL 0816 feeder. The tape peeler is different. This part of the mechanism is the same here, the thing that checks the tension on the tape. But you can see there are steel parts here. Let's zoom in and have a better look at that. Oops, I zoomed too much. You can see that there are metal parts on here, and these are factory original parts. Well, when I say factory original, not from Yamaha. These would be from a cloner, a company that makes Yamaha compatible feeders. So this ratchet mechanism that engages with the tape and moves it forward, it's all steel and should be fairly precise. But here it's being activated by a servo instead of by compressed air. So instead of a solenoid that fires the compressed air to move the ratchet, there's normally a little air piston in here. It uses a servo. So pretty cool. That's a very interesting idea. So Mr. Fix-It, I am really interested to hear how that goes, and I'm sure that you'll post about it on the list. Hey Don S, cool that you could make it along. All right, so where were we? All right, now I am not prepared with anything today. So let's just make this up as we go and see where we end up. Do whatever we want, talk about whatever we want. This is just hanging out and having a chat. I've been sort of balancing on the edge of burnout recently. So just yeah, let the squirrels loose, says Gerald. So don't worry, I'm not in too bad shape or anything like that. And in fact, there's nothing actually bad. It's not like I'm in a bad situation or there is any crisis to deal with or anything like that. All it is just too much of everything, I think, at the moment. There's a lot of, I've got a lot of work, lots of things to do, and in the middle of that I've been doing the work on renovations on the lab to build the cleanish room, which is coming along nicely. And so I've been arriving here first thing in the morning and having breakfast, like eating breakfast right here, and then just going all the way through the day and having obviously lunch here, dinner here, and then leaving probably 9 or 10 o'clock at night, sometimes later, and go back to the flat, sleep, and then come back here and repeat it. And that has been 7 days a week for a while now. So it's yeah. So it all just gets to be too much, particularly when things come along like Everything Open a couple of weeks ago and the Open Hardware Mini-Conf, which I am very lucky and grateful that Andy pretty much carried that. He did almost all of the presentation on the day and a lot of the preparation, so I didn't have to do a huge amount for it because I really didn't have the capacity to do much more than I did. And so and I think partly it's because each day is so repetitive. There's no real weekend distinction, apart from the fact that I do this live stream, which is cool. It's like, okay, so it's Sunday here now. We're 10:15 a.m., so late morning on Sunday, and then I'll be doing a bunch of stuff, and then tomorrow it's just the same thing again. And after a while it starts to it gets me into a state of mind where I start thinking, why am I bothering? Like, what am I actually doing this for? And that can be a hard thing to deal with. So Yeah, over the last few weeks, it's become more of an issue, and in the last few days, it's become more of a conscious issue. Like, it's one of those situations where I can retrospectively see, actually, I haven't been doing very well for the last few weeks, but I wasn't really consciously aware of it. Now I'm aware of it. So Chip said, just keep fit and well and the rest will follow. Yeah, that's part of it. So I have been keeping fit, which is good. I've been going to jiu-jitsu a fair bit. Last week I didn't. So last week. The week just gone, I didn't. I went last weekend and I went yesterday. So I did... and Friday I did. So I went to open... No, I didn't do open mat this Friday. I went yesterday and did striking and then did no-gi jiu-jitsu. So in terms of things like fitness and health, I'm actually doing pretty well. Like, my fitness level is excellent. My resting heart rate now is currently around 49 or so, 49.50, varies from day to day. And I can do like 2 or 3 hours of intense physical workouts, like striking and then jiu-jitsu and then whatever, and I'm okay. So fitness, I'm doing pretty well. It's more on the mental side of it and doing things that I enjoy, just for enjoying them, and I haven't been doing enough of that. One thing that I did, which was really cool, a couple of nights ago, Friday night, my son Tom and I went out to the movies. So we went out and saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was a total trip, a really fun movie. And yeah, that was a good thing. So we went up to the Cameo Cinema in Belgrave, which is it's a really old cinema, not too far from here. It's like a 15-20 minute drive from where I am. Haha, DIY, you made it along. Welcome. But it's one of these really classic old cinemas. I don't know when it was built. I could probably look it up and find out. In fact, let's see. Cameo Cinema. Cameo. Since this is just a random talking about whatever thing. Cameo Cinema Belgrave. Where am I? I can't even remember which button to press. Yeah, so it's this old cinema in Belgrave, and that's out the back of the Cameo Cinema when they do the outdoor screenings. From the outside, it doesn't look all that special. Vintage Victoria, Cameo Cinema, Cameo Theatre. Yeah. When was that? When was it built? At the yeah, I think that's one of the new ones. So the thing is that the Cameo Cinema had it's one of those things where it was originally, I think, maybe 2 screens, and then at some point they renovated it and split it up, and so to give it more screens. And there is one part of it, let's see, Cameo Cinemas Belgrave, when was it built? Cameo, there's got to be some information about Cameo Cinemas. No, it's not going to tell us much here. Anyway, the point is, it's one of these classic old cinemas. And we went to... Gavin says, like the Westgarth. Yeah, that sort of thing. Is this a cameo? Yes, it is. Yeah. So... Cameo Cinema Belgrave history. This is so random. An iconic home of cinema. Opened 1935. Okay. So, well, this is inside what is now, I think, Cinema 1, which is the big room. You can see it's huge, lots and lots of seats. So it opened with David Copperfield on November 22nd, 1935. Came to the Hills 1920s. Yeah. So it's a big classic old cinema with some littler screens as well. And if you're lucky, you end up getting into the big room, and otherwise you end up in the little room. And we went to, yeah, so Gerald says, I was thinking it had an Art Deco appeal. Exactly. And so my point, what was my point? My point was that Tom and I went to the movies on Friday. And that was nice just to go there and buy overpriced drinks, like $9 for a cup of drink and some popcorn and that sort of thing, and just hang out and watch a movie. That was fun. I need to do more of those sorts of getting out things and doing fun stuff, as do we all. We need to find opportunities for that sort of thing. Escapism, says Don. Yes. Oh, there was a comment back earlier from Don as well. Yeah, Don says, you are getting a sense of reward by helping others with the mobility projects. I get down and sometimes feel the same way. If I do volunteer work, that fixes it. I feel grateful for what I have and the pace I'm getting on my goals. Yes. Yes. So that's a good observation, and I think that probably I think you've touched on something really important there, which is that the assistive technology projects that I've been working on with Nick and Chris starting nearly 6 years ago, I think, something in that region. I'd have to check it out. Yeah, somewhere, give or take, 6 years ago. And that was largely driven by the fact that I was working with them. And when Chris died a little while ago, that ended. And so I'm kind of in limbo with that work right now. I can keep working on it, but I'm in isolation and not working with someone who has the need for it, which makes it hard. Like, I could work on things like improving the mini open adaptive controller, which is a useful little device, and I could be selling that online. People could adapt it to their needs and create different inputs and things to suit their own requirements. But I'd be doing it just on my own, and it's hard to, as someone who doesn't currently or yet have need of those devices, it's hard to direct the work in the correct way. And I really need to be working with someone who is kind of like the customer. It's like, if I was trying to do it now, I would be working on these devices with no customer. No, and I don't mean customer in the sense of a commercial arrangement. I mean customer in the sense of who is going to be using this and how are they going to be using it, and how does it need to be done in a way that is of most benefit to them. I would just be creating something in a vacuum without really any insight into whether it's even being useful. Client, Gerald says, yes. Yeah, so and at the moment I don't have access to a wheelchair, which means I can't do a lot of the testing and things that I would otherwise need to do to make these sorts of devices useful. So yeah, Don, you made a very good point. It is important to be working on things that that I feel are benefiting other people and not just benefiting myself, that gives a real sense of satisfaction. And at the moment, I'm not really doing that. It feels like all of that is on hold at the moment. Maybe it would be okay to... Henrik asked a question. Oh, that's a good point. I'll get back to that. Maybe I would like to... Sorry, get my thoughts in shape. Yeah, Adon suggested reaching out to a local society. Yeah, and there are organisations around there. I'm sure part of it is that I'm feeling so overwhelmed with all of the other things that I have to do right now that it feels like it would be taking on more. And even though it is a thing that would be beneficial to other people, beneficial to myself, certainly emotionally and in terms of satisfaction and quality of life and those sorts of things, it just feels like it would be adding another thing that I can't deal with right now. I know that it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, oh, once I just get past this, things will be better, or once this is done, things will be better. But I genuinely think that one of the things that is a real burden right now is getting through this stage of building the cleanish room and getting that space functional. Because at the moment, everything is in here. The pick and place machines aren't running. They've got plastic over them. And everything is just stacked up in a chaotic way because I've been moving things and working around things to put up the framing to build the room. And that's partly why I've been here so late as well. I've been trying to balance billable client work with the unbilled time spent working on putting all of that together and creating a better workspace. And then once that workspace is done, I can get back to being productive and I can take a bit of a breather, I think. So my goal is to get that room functional. And as I'm talking through it now, so part of my approach so far has been to take this slowly, a step at a time. But at a certain point, I need to just say, I have to push hard to get past that hump point and make it functional so that I can then take a breather. It's that balance. Do you keep going slow and steady a little bit at a time and trying to keep the balance, or do I push hard and then get to the point of having it finished, well, not necessarily finished, but completed to the point where the space is opened up again and it's accessible, and then I can run the machines and do everything I need to do. Imogen said scheduled breaks are going to be good for the future. Yeah. Imogen then said, I say this and I need to take my own advice. Yeah. So there's I'm looking into that space now, and all of the things that are piled up in there, all the things that need to be moved, and getting the purlins in so I can get the floor up, which means I can then start enclosing the walls. And then once that floor is up, it means I can put stuff up into storage, which will clear space. It's one of those things where I need to get to that tipping point where as soon as I can start putting things up on the mezzanine to get it stored out of the way, it opens up space underneath and everything becomes easier. It's really hard doing anything when you're just constantly working around boxes and machines and things. So I need the space to be able to move and then become functional again. Yeah. Henrik asked a question which I will actually, okay, let's get to that now. Henrik said, where was it? Oh, basically Henrik asked if I like building kits. And the short answer is yes. That is one thing that it's kind of like when in the very early days of when I was getting into electronics, when I was like not even a teen yet, back when I was 10, 11, I really loved putting together things like the Dick Smith Funway kits, and assembling a kit for me is therapeutic, because, and the thing is, I just can't get enough of them. It's like, for some people, doing a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle, is a good thing, because it just gets your brain engaged on pattern matching and putting things in place, but you don't have to be thinking about anything in particular. It's just changing the mode of operation of your brain. For me, soldering together an electronic kit is like that, because I don't have to think about the design. Someone else has already done the design. I am just putting it together. Now, I wouldn't necessarily want to be sitting on an assembly line and soldering together the same kit over and over again, like doing it 1,000 times. That wouldn't be so fun. That would be a chore. But if I had a kit that did something like vaguely interesting, and I follow the instructions and put the parts in place and solder it all together, and then you get something that works at the end of it, it's this sort of Zen thing where I haven't really had to think, because it's not a mental challenge to assemble a kit, but it's just it's a pleasurable thing. So short answer is yes. And on that subject, one thing that I really should do is over here, I have some stuff that this was something I started assembling. So this is a Tech 1D, Talking Electronics Computer 1, and it's the D revision. D. This is a modern recreation. I've got a couple of the PCBs here. And what else have I got? I've got a whole lot of stuff that goes with it. This is an LED array. Why am I doing this? Why don't I just switch to the overhead camera? And so there's a Talking Electronics computer. Now, I do have an original Talking Electronics computer from back in the 80s or whenever it was. But this is, this is a more recent reproduction of it. You can see that it's all nice and clean, and it's got solder mask on it and that sort of thing. So high tech. It's got solder mask. LED array, and that goes into one of the expansion ports. What's the 74LS273s? I can't remember what they are. I think they might be shift registers, maybe? I don't remember. But yeah, transistors down the side. This is Benven EEPROM emulator, 4 kilobytes. So it's got a board on it. I haven't even opened this one. So this emulates the EEPROM and lets you load programs and things onto the Tech 1 without having to load them into the EEPROM manually and then erase it with a UV eraser and all of that sort of thing. Basically, it's a functional equivalent to an EEPROM, but with all the modern convenience. And what is this? I don't even remember what I ordered. Expansion. Oh, SPO256AL2. That is a speech synthesizer. Why is that ending right there? It looks like the board is chopped off, but I don't think it is. Expansion. Okay, so that goes into the expansion port. And this is a, so this is a, what does it say? Tech Speech Board by Benven V2. Cool. Oh, and there's the expansion port up there on the PCB. And that's expansion. So that would plug in right there into the expansion port and give you a speech synthesizer. This one plugs into the expansion port, or port 3? Port 4, yeah. And gives you an LED array. So one of the things you can do is, one of the hacks that people used to do with these, in fact I did on my original, I've got my original Tech 1 somewhere. It's in fact I think it might be, it's out in the office area, in the factory area somewhere. What people did was stack up the expansion ports and bring out the select lines, and then use something like a shift register to give you access to more devices. So what you could do is have, say, a speech synthesizer plugged in, and then stack an LED array on top of it, and then use the select lines out of the shift register to select which board you wanted to talk to. So you'd have multiple things, like I had relay boards and stuff plugged in and a display board. So things like this is fun to me, but it's only fun if it's complete, like if it's got everything. Things like, in this particular case, what he was doing was selling the bare PCBs, and then you have to track down all of the parts yourself. So that is not so fun. And you can see that at some point, when I first got this, I just soldered in a couple of parts because I happened to have them. And then I need to track down the 6116, that one was static RAM, I think. 2732, that would be an EEPROM, I think. So this is going from my memory from literally decades ago. 2732, that would probably be a 32, how much memory? I was going to say 32K EEPROM, but it may not be that big. It couldn't be 32 byte, that's way too small. Yeah, probably 32K. I don't know. Yeah, the 6116 I think might have been something like a 4K or an 8K SRAM module. So Z80 CPU, 4049, what was that to do with? That I think was part of the oscillator. So that was setting the clock speed of the CPU. 74C923, I do not remember what that was. Or maybe this is where the oscillator was. DSE crystal 4049, I don't remember. Yeah, 7805 voltage regulator. There's meant to be a big capacitor attached on there, 1000 microfarad electro, which I haven't put on. There you can see I put the voltage regulator on. So this is the thing. To assemble this, I now need to chase down all of these parts. Some of them I probably have, many of them I don't. So what's really therapeutic to me is receiving something like a PCB with all of the parts ready to go in a bag. And then I can just, it's like what I was talking about earlier with people solving jigsaw puzzles as therapy. It's just that this is like a jigsaw puzzle. The only difference is that the pieces are put together with a soldering iron instead of clipped together. Yeah, Andrew says, having to track down all the parts sounds far too close to your normal tasks. Exactly. So, yeah, parts sourcing and inventory and all of those sorts of things. And that drives me nuts. Because, yes, that is exactly what I do every day. And having to do that for recreation is not the same thing. So having it all handed to me in a bag, it's like, oh, this is so nice. Ooh, I just saw Johnny. Thank you for gifting all of those memberships. Ah, yes. That is really cool. So memberships ended up going to Gavin, Henrik, DIY, Matt, and Aaron. All thanks to Johnny. Now, where was I? I'm scrolling back in the chat to see where I was, because when I was showing the Tech 1, I missed all the things going on in the chat. Yeah, so Mr. Fixit said one more obligation. Ooh, Henrik said, I'm asking just because I'm thinking what things to send to you and what not. Ooh, I might be getting a care package from Henrik. That would be cool. And if it includes kits, that would be awesome. Don S from NZ says, working bee. Yeah. The major issue with getting the factory space done is doing this in financial increments as well, because that's, yeah, I've just got to not spend all the money at once. So Stephen said, an alternative that doesn't involve taking on more is dedicating Sunday afternoon or evening to anything you want to do that isn't work related. Yes, I should do that. So, what am I going to do today? It's Sunday. What will I do for this Sunday afternoon? I suppose a nice thing to do would be to go up Mount Dandenong and just see the green trees and inhale the fresh air and all of that sort of thing. It can be kind of weird doing that on your own though. I've done that like fairly recently on a Sunday afternoon after a live stream. I thought, screw it, I can't be bothered staying here and working, and I also didn't want to go back to the flat because there's nothing really there. And so where do I go? So I just went for a drive, which is odd on your own. It feels like the sort of thing that you do with other people. But yeah, anyway, it was okay. Yeah, Mr. Fixit says you'll feel much better when your workspace is usable. Yes, definitely. Mr. Fix. Oh, and then Mr. Fixer said, "Push hard, beat me, whip me. It feels so good when you stop." Yes, you got to. I think I am going to push through. I really need to get. Yeah, the critical thing is getting the floor on the mezzanine, and after that, everything else can go more slowly, because that is what will allow me to clear the floor space, and then I'll be cooking with gas. Yeah. Gavin said, "No man is an island. You only find yourself when you reach out to others who are there wanting to help, but also don't know how to ask, do you need help?" Interesting way of putting it. When you reach out to others who are there wanting to help, but also don't know how to ask, do you need help? Yeah, I suppose that's the case. Because it can be hard to... The classic thing is people say it's hard to ask for help, and people don't want to ask for help. I don't like asking for help. This is the thing. I get into this situation where... So Tom, my son, will be here working on things, and I'm trying to find productive things for him to do. And I will end up doing jobs that are bad because I can't bring myself to ask him to do it. For example, just recently, this happened this week, we had some PCBs that were assembled, and I gave him some boards. This was a type of board that he had never assembled before, and it had pin headers on it. And the thing is that I had put the footprint for the pin headers on the top of the board, and that's where the silkscreen was, but my intention was that they would be mounted underneath, because this was actually an expansion board that added on to something else. So he started assembling it, and he put the pin headers on where the silkscreen said to put them, which of course was the correct thing to do, except in this case it was the wrong thing to do, because I had intended for him to put them on the bottom. And he assembled 8 boards this way, and it was 100% my fault for not having given him the instructions to start with. And they were, so the pin headers were, it was a double row pin header with, how many was it? I think it might have been 20 pins, so 2 rows of 10 pins. And those things are not that easy to get out once you've got them in there. Getting out a normal, like a single row pin header, can be tricky. Getting out a double row pin header can be really hard. And so they needed to be fixed. All these pin headers needed to be removed. I ended up doing it like late one night, because I told him, just put those ones aside, keep on assembling the rest of the boards, and then we'll figure it out later. But I couldn't bring myself to ask him to fix those pin headers because it was a crappy job, and I don't like asking for people to do that sort of thing. So even though he's sitting there like wanting to do soldering and assembly and things. Anyway, so that's the classic thing, is not being able to ask for help and then doing it yourself. But Gavin's point is very interesting, which is the other perspective of people not knowing how to ask, do you need help? And yeah, that's a very good point. It's you can see someone in in distress or needing help or whatever, and not know how to say, can I help you, or what sort of help do you need? Often it feels like it feels very hollow to say, and whatever you need, just let me know and I'll be there to help you. Like, that's a very general sort of thing. And when I say that to people, I say it genuinely, meaning, like, can I do anything to help you? Like, if you've got time pressure, can I go and buy groceries for you? Or, it doesn't matter what it is. But for me, it feels very hollow asking that way because it's non-specific. Anyway, enough of that. Ping TNT and Jerry? I don't get that. Yeah, Stephen W says, Dick Smith kits, yes. So, Mr. Fixit said, kits are great because you know they work when you are done, if you did it right. Yeah. Now, I'm really, really disappointed that the reviving the Funway series didn't end up going anywhere because of that copyright issue. So I have, it's not in here. In one of the plastic tubs out in the factory, I have prototypes of re-implemented Dick Smith Funway kits that I redid a few years ago and contacted Dick about it. And he was all enthusiastic and said, yes, go and do it. Like, bring the books back, reprint the Funway series, do updated, modernized versions, new kits, all of that sort of thing. But then there was an issue with the copyright on the original books, and the publisher that I talked to was scared off by the potential copyright issues and didn't want to get into it. So anyway, a lot of the work was already done. The kits are there, like PCBs redesigned and re-implemented and that sort of thing, because the original PCB artwork, I think some of it might still exist, but the original artwork for those was all done by hand. Like the Dick Smith kits that came out whenever it was in the 80s, 90s, the PCBs for that were designed by hand, and so there was original artwork that was then photographically transferred, but the original artwork was not on a computer, and I'm pretty sure that's all long gone. So anyway, I redesigned most of the PCBs from Dick Smith Funway 2, and I have them all ready to go. Yeah. Ricky says, Funway 2 and 3 were great. Funway 1 was annoying because I didn't have the strength at the age of 7 or 8 to screw the screws into that stupid board. Yep. Yeah. Imogen said, makes me think I should try printing some colouring book artwork onto watercolour paper and paint it. I like the idea of not having to think about the design. Yeah, I haven't done it myself, but something I saw a few years ago was colouring books. And the idea being that these are colouring, they're not, like, when you say colouring book, you think of it as being something for, primary school kids or preschoolers or something like that. But there are colouring books now which are much more intricate and interesting designs and more challenging. The idea being that anyone, any age, can do them, and you can. It's like doing a puzzle. You sit there. You don't need the artistic expression necessarily to be able to come up with a design. You're filling in an existing design, but then you still get into this sort of zen or flow state of following the design that is on the page there ready for you, and you just get the pleasure of expressing yourself in that way. So yeah, I've never actually done one of those, but my guess is that the experience of doing that, like doing that colouring sort of process, would be very similar to the process of putting together a jigsaw puzzle or assembling an electronics kit. So Frank said, who's selling the Tech 1D kit? I honestly can't remember. It was one of the original... in fact, what happened to that Facebook group? There was a Facebook group where the original people from Talking Electronics used to hang out, and I haven't seen any activity on it in the last couple of years. But there used to be talk about revisions. There was also the Tech 1E. So the original designer who did the very first Tech 1 design. So I think the Tech 1, like this one here, the Tech 1D, I think this is just a direct re-implementation of the original design without really any significant changes. But the original designer, hang on, it says something on the PCB there. Oh no, it just says 250195, Rev 2008 90, oh Rev, yeah. So this is the 95 design, reproduction 2018. Okay, so this is this board here, that one you can see there as well, is a 2018 reproduction of the 1995 design. From January 95 was when the D revision of this came out. But the thing is that parts availability has changed, and there are ways that this design could be improved now. So the guy who originally designed the Tech 1 and then the Tech 1B and C and D a few years ago was doing a Tech 1E, which was an actual overhaul to the design. But I don't know whatever happened to it. Tech 1E, Talking Electronics, I'm going to see what I can find about it. Because if there was a... Tech 1. Oh, here we go. Oh, Ben Venn. Okay, so this is where I got it from. I will bring this up on screen where you can see it. So this is Ben Venn's online store. All prices in US dollars. $16, PCB only, Tech 1D, Talking Electronics Z80 trainer computer. And so that's the one that you can see. So stock 19. I'm going to drop this URL in the chat. I'm probably still about 15 minutes behind all the chat, so sorry everybody. Yeah, so there's a picture of it assembled, and there it's got the LED array. Yeah, you can see the LED matrix in operation there. What else? 128 kilobyte SRAM module. No, that's a different thing. Let's find Tech 1D. Almost popular. Yeah, there's lots of retro computing stuff on here. Find us on Discord. Okay, is there a search? I'll just do a search for Tech 1. Tech Talk. Tech compatible, $60, sold out. Yeah, that one could be fully populated. Yeah, flash carts, tools, rare hardware. Yeah, I don't see the other boards listed anymore. So there was if we go back to this one, you can see here Ben Venn was offering this, and there was the EEPROM board, but I don't see them here. So, oh, okay, so Colin Mitchell's website is still up, which is, and when was it last updated? Oh, that's just today's date. Look at this, we got blinking GIFs and all sorts of stuff. Where to start? I wonder when it was last updated. Colin is still around, I'm pretty sure. So, anyway. Anyway, back to the chat. What have I missed in the chat? Okay, getting back to here. I'm trying to find where I was in the chat. 32K EEPROM in keyboard encoder. Yeah, Frank said the 74C923 was probably the keyboard encoder. Yeah, probably, yeah. So Chip says, if all the parts are provided, it seems more like Meccano. Yeah, a little bit. So, oh, Henrik said, so if I would send you some kits someday, would you solder them in your live stream? I would love that. That would be really cool. I'd like to do kit assembly on a live stream because it's just a fun thing. And it's an ideal sort of thing to do on a live stream because I don't have to think about it too much. It's just like doing things with my hands. I could be soldering on camera and talking to you at the same time. So that's a good thing. Trady Trev said, that's what I've got a dog for. Yeah, so this is a throwback to the conversation about being alone and doing things on your own. And Mr. Fixit says, that's when I like to ride my e-bike. Yeah, that's a good point. I should get back out on my bike. Yeah. Gavin said, turn on the barbecues on a cool morning at Mount Dandenong and pour some cool water on the barbecue. Enjoy the moment. Yeah, that. Yes. Speaking of which, last week I can't remember, I might have even said this last live stream. I don't remember. My memory does not work that well. My goal, because things are being rearranged now in the factory, my original plan, when I showed you the floor planner arrangement for the 4 quadrants, my plan for laying out the factory, that has been modified a bit because of gaining all of what I did not allow for. This was just not in my original plan at all, was gaining that huge mezzanine area over the cleanish room and over the other side, which allows me to move a whole lot of stuff up there that otherwise would have had to be accommodated down the bottom. Now what that allows me to do is take all of the mechanical stuff, like CNC machine and drill press and workbenches, all of the big dirty stuff that is just inside the roller door right now. So that front right quadrant on the plan was the mechanical assembly area. What it means is I can move all of that directly back into the back right quadrant, which is where all of the stock storage and packing and all of that sort of stuff is in the original plan, and open up the front section as more of an open area that could be used. I could bring a car in to work on it, or use it for general assembly sort of stuff, like larger mechanical assembly as a multi-purpose workspace. The point is, I want to have barbecues. So I was thinking maybe Friday, I don't know if Friday lunchtime or Friday at the end of work is the best time to do it. But I was thinking of getting a barbecue and sticking it just inside the roller door, and it means that on nice days we could have barbecue and people just, like Bunnings barbecue style, nothing special, just some sausages and some bread, and anybody that wants to come around can come and have a sausage and bread with me on Friday. And if it was Friday lunchtime, that would be better for all the local people here, because on Fridays the factory is basically like by 3 o'clock everybody's gone home. So people like the guys from the sawmill over the road and from the factories either side and out the back and that sort of thing, it'd be really cool to just have a standing arrangement where every Friday lunchtime I throw on some sausages, and if anybody wants to come along, that'd be cool. Come and hang around for a little while. But if I do it at the end of the day, it would mean that most of the local people would have shut up and gone home. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe just some sausages and some bread on a Friday lunchtime is the way to do it. But that makes it a bit harder for people that have to come from other distances away. Okay. Oh, Henrik says, I checked. It's only 24 euros to send a 2 kilogram package to Australia. Wow. That's not too bad as international shipping goes. But Henrik, I am happy to cover your postage. If you've got stuff that you want to send me and I can assemble it on a live stream, I would love to have some kits. So if you've got ideas of kits for me to assemble, please let me know. Oh, Aaron said, question, have you come across any new home automation devices or tech recently that you're interested in? Any new ESP chips, on-off devices, etc., etc.? Yes, the thing that has been on my radar for a while is radar. The radar motion detectors for things like presence detection, it's something that I have really been wanting to experiment with. It's probably the thing that I have, it really fits that, as in something that I don't have any experience with, but it looks extremely useful and interesting. And I know it's not new, and they've been around for a while, and many people, you can do DIY systems with the little modules you can get on AliExpress, and people have done videos about them and tutorials and made products based on them. So it's not really a new thing, but it's probably the closest thing to a new thing. So it's the thing that I am curious about. I want to try making some and do motion detection and presence detection and those sorts of things with it. That would be cool. That would be interesting. Apart from that, I want to play around with the ESP32S3 a little. I've got some of Xeon's boards, but I've pretty much, even with all these new processors coming out, for the projects that I've been working on, I've basically just been sticking with the regular old ESP32, and I want to experiment with some of the newer ones, but I just haven't. Yeah. Don, this is talking about doing things on your own. Don said, I've had to learn to do stuff on my own when I'm doing commissioning overseas. Try walking into a restaurant on your own for the first time. Yeah, I did that. In fact, I've done that twice in the last month or so. I was in Heathmont and I chucked some stuff in the laundromat, and it was going to take like 40 minutes to run. So I walked a few doors down, and there was what was it? I think that it was a Chinese restaurant. And, there are people in there in groups eating dinner, and I walked in totally on my own and sat down on my own and ordered. And it was a weird feeling, like the feeling of going to a restaurant on your own. And it's different, like going into something like a cafe, the typical place where you go in and get a coffee and maybe an egg and bacon roll or something, that sort of thing. That doesn't feel abnormal at all, because that's an environment where you normally go in on your own to grab snacks, and you go in, you get stuff, you leave. But going into a restaurant where people normally sit down in groups, and sitting down on your own, ordering the food, sitting there and eating it and leaving, weird feeling. Very strange. It's like going to the movies on your own. It's just such a strange thing. Yes. Mr. Fixit says, a lot of your friends live on different continents. If I was there, I could help a lot. I have skills that you need. I'm just too far away. Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Fixit. And yes, there are so many skilled people here in this group. It's cool. But yeah, I appreciate that. Alistair said, I've ADHD'd probably my way into a mostly unusable study and workshop. All therapists in ACT have super long lead times, so I got a referral to a Sydney-based one who only had a 2-month lead time. Wow. 2 months to getting to see someone. I've heard that is pretty much the way it is everywhere now. Like getting into a psychiatrist to do something like an ADHD assessment to get a diagnosis can take months and months. Yeah. Ooh. Tradish says, have I got some stories from the job site? Please share. Maybe they are down. I'm still so far behind on chat. I'm trying to catch up. Alistair went on to say, one of the best takeaways from everything open was that ADHD was right to the forefront thanks to Hugh Blemmings and became a hot topic. Yep. Yeah, that was cool. So Hugh was very careful about who he referred to. Like, he didn't name people when he was doing his presentation because he was being respectful of privacy. But in his keynote, he talked about a conversation where he was talking to a couple of other people, and one of them said that he had just been recently diagnosed with ADHD, and the other one seemed to show all the signs. Yeah, that was me. So you might remember when I did my last year, when I did that live stream where I was talking about I had been on a regular catch-up video call with a couple of good friends, and they had both recently been diagnosed with ADHD, and they both said I should, look into it. That video call is the one that Hugh was referring to in that keynote. And at the time, so same sort of thing. When I talked about that on that video, I didn't name anyone because I didn't want to breach confidence. But the thing is that Hugh has now got up on stage and talked about it, which means it's okay for me to say his name. Chip said it can be very difficult when someone that needs help doesn't know it and isn't ready to receive it. And Alistair replied, when someone you care about actively refuses help, that's hard. That is really hard. And Alistair said, important point is the help people want and the help they need aren't necessarily the same thing. Test the cause, not the symptom. Good insight. Yeah, often we end up seeing a situation that someone is in and seeing the surface of it and the result of whatever the cause is and not the actual cause. So dealing with the cause and not the symptom is critical. Stick on UV dots and ferric chloride. All right. I'm going to try to skip through. I've got to try to catch up. Peter says, why don't we have a channel barbecue? Yes. And then Celtic Bee says, post-stream barbecue on a Sunday. Yes. That would be really cool. If it was... In fact, what would be extremely cool would be to have some slight overlap. So maybe have people start to turn up at the end of the stream. And have some... So I could end the normal stream and then switch to like a post-stream stream if people don't mind being on camera. Yes, good point. So Justin said, I like the S3, but I'm trying to do CAN on it and it's not so native anymore. That is quite an issue. So the original ESP32 has a built-in CAN controller. Doesn't have a CAN transceiver, obviously, because that depends on what your actual electrical interface is. But what you can do is simply add a CAN transceiver chip externally and use the built-in CAN controller. But from what I've heard, the CAN controller has been deleted from some newer ESP32 models. Some Call It Fun asked, are you solidly sticking with Eagle or have you considered tinkering with KiCad? I definitely am interested in KiCad. So I'm not solidly sticking with Eagle. It's an inertia thing. And there have been a couple of incidents where I've been really frustrated. And the thing is that I am actually still using Eagle. I'm not even using the electrical side of Fusion 360 at the moment. And the main reason for that is, so Eagle development stopped. Like, it went through this period where it was getting very rapid updates, many new features and things, as it was in the process of being merged into Fusion 360. But I don't think there's been a new release of Eagle for quite a while now. And it's because the entire development effort is on Fusion 360 and the schematic and PCB functionality within that. So that's where all of the work is going, all the new features and things. So at some point, fairly soon, I'm going to need to move off Eagle. It's just not sustainable, because it's just going to, bit rot. It'll start having problems with things like new platforms coming out, like updates to OSs, and things will happen. It'll just stop working eventually. So I can't stay on Eagle. I need to go to something else. And the question is, what is that something else? It could be Fusion 360, or it could be KiCad. That's really the decision that I have to make. And in terms of the way it works, I really, really like the tight integration in Fusion 360, and the functionality that it has is pretty incredible. The tight integration between electrical design and mechanical design and thermal modeling and signal analysis and all of those sorts of things. They've got so many really powerful tools all in one package. But the fact that it is cloud-based, in terms of the way, like, the program runs locally, but the data storage being online, that drives me nuts. I really can't stand it. I want local files. And maybe that's being old-fashioned, and it means that the collaboration side of it, like, that's the big benefit. That's really why they're pushing for it, is you can collaborate live on projects in Fusion 360, like with multiple people with the project open at the same time. And that can be really, really powerful. But the reality is, in an electronics project, how often do you have multiple people working on the thing at the same time? It's actually remarkably rare. Even when you have teams working on projects, typically the project will be broken down into bite-sized chunks, and one person will work on it. You won't really have two people working on the same part of a PCB at the same time, or part of a schematic at the same time. It's just not really a thing. Yes. So there are some, where are we? GPIO, skipping back into this. Livestream movie trip, says Imogen. Yeah, that's a good idea. So that's another thing, is that I've been wanting to organize more social events, in-person social events. And that was one of the reasons that I went axe throwing recently, organized for a few people from my gym to go axe throwing, and then had another friend come along as well. And that was fun. So I want to actively try to do these sorts of things, and a movie trip could be a good way to do it for people who are local. It's a bit of a tricky thing with this sort of group, because such a small percentage of the people who interact with me on these live streams are right here in Melbourne. Most are overseas. Where are we? Okay. I'm trying to catch up. I think I've almost caught up on the chat. Ricky says, high five to all the ADHDers out there. I'm a network architect at a very prominent Australian national broadcaster, and it's only the ability to hyperfocus and fixate on topics that landed me the job. Yep. Oh, Henrik, 3 a.m. in Sweden. Oh, yeah. How are you here watching this at 3 a.m.? I couldn't do that anymore. Yes, Ricky. So that is a very good point, and something that I found personally was very, very important was, and I've mentioned this before as well, is learning not to fight my brain, learning to go with it, and understanding that my brain works in a certain way, and I need to work on a variety of different tasks to keep the mental stimulation happening, but sometimes I need to hyper-focus, and I can be extremely productive for a long period of time. And so not many work environments really allow you the flexibility to work or to prioritize or focus on tasks in a way that suits yourself. A lot of the time it's based on what does the Gantt chart say you have to work on next. It's like, this is the task that is in front of you now, and you have a certain period of time to do it in. And for people with neurodiversity, that can be a problem. So a few years ago, this was even before I'd even considered that I might have ADHD, I very consciously decided that I was not going to fight my brain anymore, and I was just going to set up my work environment to suit the way I want to work, rather than constantly fighting my brain and trying to force myself onto tasks that it's like selective blindness. When you have a task that you need to do and you know you need to do it and you're trying to force yourself to do it, and the more you force yourself to do it, the less able you are to focus on it. And yeah, there are certain things that you just have to do because they have to be done. They're unavoidable. But you can also change schedules around, and you can reprioritize things, or you can give yourself rewards for achieving certain milestones. There are different things you can do to account for the fact that your brain doesn't work in the way the majority of the population's brains work, and still be extremely productive, even though the sequence of events or the sequence of the way you work on things might be different to other people. And you might work by jumping around between little tasks and punctuated by hyperfocus. There is something that you really get into, and then you just do nothing but think about that thing and forget to eat and drink and, sleep and whatever for huge amounts of time, and get through a whole lot of work. And having a work environment where the flexibility allows you to do that and be in whatever mode is most useful to you at the time is good. Henrik said, Ricky said, you need to eat dessert before the main course. Get that dopamine flowing. Yes. Peter, I'll get back to your question. So, yes, in fact, there's some of you may know Bidale Garbi, who is the former Debian project leader, and I've known him for a long, long time through LinuxConf. I first met him 22 years ago, I think. And and his wife has this philosophy of always eat dessert first. So in the Garbi household, that's not an unusual thing. It's like if you go out to a restaurant, order dessert and then order your main, which is kind of amusing. But then a couple of days ago on Twitter, someone I follow on Twitter named Elizabeth posted something about, what was it? She posted that she'd had, it was basically about living your life as if you don't know if you're going to make it to the next course. So when you're having dinner, start with dessert, because you don't know if you're going to be alive by the time you get to the main course. And so eat every meal as if it's your last. So, what was it she posted? It was something good that that's right. Carrot cake, I think it was. So she started dinner with carrot cake, and that particular evening I started dinner with caramel mud cake. It was my first course. Yes. Chip said, for a special event, many people are likely willing to travel. Hopefully, yes, a little bit at least. All right, so Peter asked, are the Z-Wave power boards available for sale yet? They are not, but that is I know I keep saying this. It is something I've got to do. And it's not even that hard. I just need to get some out of a box and set up a web page. I've got to come up with pricing. That's the other thing. So maybe let's figure this out. All right. In fact, I'm going to leave my, what will I do? I'm going to go to overhead, just so that you got something there to look at. And I'm going to go out into the other room and grab a box and show you what's in it. And then we can together decide what might be a reasonable price. What would people be willing to pay? The boxes are up high. I'm going to need myself a knife. Here we go. Good old Stanley knife. But first I've got to get this box. No, I've got boxes lower down. These boxes are stacked up everywhere. They're all around the place. So I'm going to go into the cleanish room area, and there are things piled on the boxes. Because of course there is, as I said, stuff everywhere. All right, I'm going to open a box of boxes and show you exactly what Peter is talking about. That's it. So, what I have, switching back to here just for now, what I have are these green wave kits, and yes, I can completely disappear behind it. This thing, it's a largish box, and inside it we have, hang on, where is this? Got to get this on camera. Starting from the most useful thing, we've got two 6-way Z-Wave or Z-Wave, whichever way, power boards. These are fantastic. I've used heaps of them around my lab. So everything is controlled off these Z-Wave power boards now. And so we've got 2 of those, and there are 3 of these single outlet adapters. Plug it into a power point, and you get a Z-Wave controllable thing. Now, the 6-way power boards I am successfully running off Z-Wave to MQTT integrated with Node-RED. So I can like voice control individual outlets and control different things around the office. So these I know are good and they work. So far I haven't done the integration on the single things. I need to do that. So I can't sell these 100% knowing that they work with Z-Wave to MQTT, because I haven't actually got any of these bound yet. Then, so there are 3 of those. Then there is this little device, which is the gateway or the coordinator, and it's got a network connection on it. So the idea is that you plug this into your home network, and this acts as the gateway for all of the other devices. Now this is useless, probably. I mean, you might be able to put new firmware on it, I don't know, but it's probably a throwaway job. And likewise, this display is probably a throwaway job. This is for displaying the energy consumption. But the thing is that the gateway and all of that sort of stuff is, it requires the green wave web service, I think, like whatever API they use. So these may be useful for hacking, but probably not. These, if you get them running with MQTT to Node-RED, or Node-RED to MQTT, then probably useful. 6-way power board's definitely useful. And then there are also, there are 2 power adapters. One of them is a USB adapter, network cable. What else? Yeah, that's about it. And some old batteries in here, which will have 100% leaked because these things have been sitting in storage. In fact, I'm going to chuck these ones in the bin. They're gross. So those are useless. So anyway, this is that way. This is the pack of everything that is in one of these boxes. So what I was thinking of doing is coming up with a price for each of the individual things that's in it. So a price for a 6-way power board, a price for a single plug thing, and then maybe a price for the whole box as is. So I don't know. Mr. Fixit says Z-Waves can help pay for your new lab. Yes, possibly. Yeah. Oh, very good point. Johan said your son can do that. I should delegate that. Andrew says make it easy, just sell the boxes as is. Yeah, true. And provide instructions on how to flash them. Yeah, I'm going to do a video about how to flash them. It's Paul asked, is there Home Assistant integration? I don't know. Probably if you... In fact, I think there is. You could definitely do it through Node-RED. Not Node-RED. Definitely do it through MQTT. So, and Home Assistant, of course, can talk to MQTT. So you definitely can do it. I'm just not sure if there is like a native integration that exposes everything nicely. So if I Z-Wave, let's see, I'll pull up my local control panel. This is my Z-Wave to MQTT control panel, and you can see here all of these multi-socket 6-plug things down here. And you can see down the bottom there's the Aeon Labs Gen 5 USB controller. That's the Z stick, which is acting, that's plugged into a Raspberry Pi, and this is what's acting as the gateway. And in fact, it's the same Raspberry Pi that I'm looking at right now. This device, this machine, zwave.local, is a Raspberry Pi with the USB stick plugged in, and it's running the Z-Wave to MQTT software, and this is the interface for it. So then it's got all these 6-way boards plugged in. Don't know what's going on with that one. I think it was a failed flash or something. Something screwed up on it. And so I can go into like this one, for example, and I can, this is the name that I've assigned it, its location, configuration, and I can go into things like meter, and I can see that on the first outlet 22.2 watts is being drawn and 60 watts on the last one, nothing on the others. And binary switch, I can turn things on and off with the web interface. I won't actually do that right now because I'm not sure what's plugged into those particular things. But yeah, you can get all of this. This interface works just fine with these 6-way power boards. Johan says in settings you have Home Assistant integration. Yeah, Aaron suggested maybe price up the individual equivalent available items online for a 6-way Z-Wave and the single socket devices. This would be a good indication on what new available equivalent device would cost. Yeah, cool. Looks in settings. Andrew said, and repeating my comment from just above, you don't have to put them up for sale. You just like to, as would we. Yeah. Oh, Henrik said, can you answer my question about the component thing? I must have missed your question, Henrik. Where is it? Ah, Henrik, the question was, a bit of a spoil, if I send you a package, I will include a component, and it's your task to figure out what component it is without the internet. What do you think about that idea? Oh, okay. Sure. I'm up for that challenge. I'm sure it'll show up my lack of knowledge. This is the thing, is that knowledge of electronic parts or anything technically specific like you've worked with before, then you'll pick it up and go, oh yes, I know what that is, and you sound really clever. You just haven't worked with before, and you'll pick it up and go, I don't have the faintest idea, and look really silly. So, and the thing is that the vast majority of things I've never worked with. But sure, let's do it as a challenge. We'll just see if I happen to recognize it. I just got a warning that the bit rate is higher than anyway. Yeah. Oh, Henrik said, so if you receive it someday, the live can help you. Yep. Yeah. Oh, Peter pointed out to LSD. Yes, it's the same program. Oh yes, now it's frozen. Hopefully it'll come back. Well, in the control connection. So I think hopefully the buffer will have been doing its thing, and it'll all come back. Where was I looking? Post-stream barbecue and Z-Wave auction, says Celtic Beast. What I need is Rusty Russell as my auctioneer. Raising funds for a good cause. So, which one am I running? Info, Z-Wave JS. That's interesting. So, I'm just going to go back to here. Look at what I'm actually running. It says Z-Wave JS 13.0, Z-Wave JS 9.5.0. Okay, so I don't actually know what I'm running. What am I running? So this is copyright 2023, Daniel Lando. Whatever I'm running, it's a recent release. Settings. Can I find out what I am actually running? Z-Wave JS to MQTT is what I'm running. Okay. Yeah. Some Call It Fun says it's a Capasso Resisto Inducto FET. Oh yes, it's a CRIF network. A CRIF network. What was I doing? I don't know. So let's see, Z-Wave to wave to MQTT, and let's see where that takes us. And this, does it say move to Z-Wave JS? So this was from after a discussion with the Open Z-Wave maintainer, blah blah blah. Whose repo is this one? So that's Robert's Lando, and then move to Z-Wave JS. I don't know if it's a re-implementation or if it's a name change or what the deal is, but it looks like this is the way to do it. So I've been saying Z-Wave to MQTT, but it's quite likely, like the title up here says Z-Wave to MQTT. The title here says Z-Wave JS to MQTT, and the info panel up here says Z-Wave JS and Z-Wave JS to MQTT with two different version numbers. So I don't know what the hell is going on. It's probably, yeah. Oh, Peter says it's a name change. Okay, cool. Full-featured Z-Wave control panel UI and MQTT gateway built using Node.js and Vuetify. Anyway, it looks like this is what I am currently running. And as you've been able to see on streams in the past, it's definitely working nicely. But I need to figure out the so one of the things that is odd about it is Node-RED let's have a look at my local node red. What took me quite a while is figuring out okay, let's try truffle 1 on message. Okay, so firstly, finding this. So this is the actual topic that you have to publish to make it work. And this particular part of it is based on the ID that you've given the device, and then there I think might be auto-allocated or something, and then it is the first output, and then target value and set as the command, and then you send a message, and the actual message is on or off. So that is how it's controlled. And it looks like the internet is having trouble again, but I will just keep talking and ignore it. Yeah. Oh, right, very good point. So Mr. Fixit said, just to remind everyone that all of these are 240 volt Australian standard 50 hertz. Yeah. So these would only be useful for people in Australia or New Zealand because they are certified for according to the AUNZ standard. Yeah, probably work in China. Australian, New Zealand standards. It should. It's got SAA approval. Yeah, somewhere it'll have information about what standard it complies with, or you could look it up. I don't know, but it's yeah. These were distributed by SP AusNet, which is the oh, that's a good point, and the megahertz is different, Don says. Yes. Oh, Stephen said, isn't China 110 like the US? No, don't think so. I've used appliances in China. China travel power adapter. Let's see. Yeah, standard voltage in China is 220 volts. But there are a few different things, I think, in different parts of China. Yeah, so China is 220 volts, frequency is 50 hertz. So very close to Australia. So Australia nominally is 200, even though we say 240 volts all the time, the standard is actually 230 volts. It's just that like in Victoria, the power authority actually supplies about 240 volts, give or take. Yeah. Yes, China is 220 volts, 50 hertz. That's right. Oh, Paul said, I found MQTT Explorer to be a useful tool in diagnosing MQTT traffic, topics, messages, etc. Yeah, cool. That is a useful tool. I don't know. I have used it, I think, a couple of times, but normally what I do is I just subscribe to the wildcard topic in verbose mode. I get the fire hose coming out of the broker, but then I can use and then start filtering it down, like piping it through grep to limit the different things, narrowing down what it is that I'm searching for. So, what am I doing? I don't know. I'm seriously thinking of finishing up the stream soon. Partly because I'm like, this is weird. I feel like a nap. Oh, Ricky says, I believe it's Japan that is 110 volts, with half the country 50 hertz and the other half 60 hertz. Oh, fantastic. just to make things even more interesting. Yeah, maybe it's the whole daylight savings change thing, but it feels like I've been streaming for hours. Like, it feels like I've been streaming for longer than normal. It feels, maybe it's just because it feels later than normal. A bit mentally zonked and kind of that hurts. Great, Peter. Yes. Yeah. I think I will wrap it up. Go and get myself something to eat, which will definitely help. I had a smallish breakfast before starting the stream, but I needed to eat more. I missed second breakfast. I pretty much always do. When I'm streaming, well, sometimes I have first at like 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and then I have second breakfast just before the stream. But normally second breakfast is at a time when the stream would otherwise be on. Gerald said, get some fresh air and sunshine. Yeah, that's a good idea. Even just rolling up the roller door so that I can let the sunshine in would be a good thing. Open the factory up to the world. All right. Stephen said I've had lunch midstream. I'm jealous. What am I going to do for lunch? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a hamburger. Except it's not going to be beef burger. Yesterday I went to the supermarket and got a couple of beef patties, and Henrik says, I just ate sweet chili chicken pasta with sauce, so good, and I ate too much. That sounds pretty good too. Sweet chili chicken pasta. I don't have the makings of that. I do have the makings for a beef cheeseburger, so with salad. I got a whole thing of salad in the fridge, so I am going to do that. All right, I feel like I need to give myself a to-do list coming out of this. You know, like having a meeting at work, and then you finish the meeting with a whole lot of dot points assigned to you. It's like, oh, what are my takeaways from this meeting? My to-dos are this, this, and this, and I have to report back. Okay, I have to report back on Z-Wave stuff. I need to think about barbecues and things, like having people over on a Sunday. That would be cool too. So I had been thinking of a Friday lunch, but Sunday lunch after live stream. That would be really cool. Doing an event, doing a regular thing here where people turn up at the end of the live stream would be really cool. I don't know. It feels like I've got more things that should be on my to-do list, but I've forgotten them already. Stephen W says, to-do number 1, burger. Yes. Okay, I'm going to go and do that and promptly forget about all of the other things. But I really do need to put up those Z-Wave boards. Okay. I'm going to go. Thanks for coming along to a very undirected and random live stream. It really does help to have you all in the chat and to communicate with so many people each week. Even though, very sadly, I don't get to talk to you directly and hear your voices and see your faces, which I wish I could do, it's still nice to have this interaction. So thank you. And I hope you all have a fantastic week. Stephen W says, job for Tom, photos of Z-Wave boards for listing. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this box and put it on his desk. And that'll be the reminder that that needs to be done. So when he comes into work tomorrow, there'll be the Z-Wave box on his desk. And he'll say, what's this for? And it'll remind me and I'll explain it. Okay. So, thank you everybody. And have a fantastic weekend, whatever is left of it for you. And I will talk to you all really soon. Thanks. See ya.